The performance of Bruno Fernandez against Newcastle United was proof that we need a new striker this summer. You see, with a striker like Bruno or that profile, we could see just how involved he was against Newcastle. Whereas normally, when Rasmus Hojlund plays, he has nowhere near as much involvement. There are games where he struggles to get into it, never really gets a touch on the ball, becomes isolated. So Manchester United need a new striker. Someone who could do something a little bit different to Rasmus Hojlund. Not always running in behind these areas like this, sometimes dropping deeper into these areas to try and get on the ball. And we saw the importance of that from Bruno Fernandez the other day. Now, yes, we have seen a couple of these clips already, but I do just want to go over them again to prove a point. Bruno Fernandez's ability to get in the half space and the room that it creates for other people. That's the important thing here. Not just Bruno getting on the ball, which of course is important, but also what it does for those around him. So, in this instance here, Bruno Fernandez is initially running in behind the defence and then quickly checks backwards and gets into this little pocket of space in between, again, the defence and the midfield. Now, the important thing here is it allows him to get on the ball in this bit of space. So as he receives, he is then able to turn. But the important thing we get is a wide winger in Alejandro Garnacho. So our running threat, if you like, is coming from Garnacho on the left-hand side, rather than through the middle with Bruno Fernandez. Of course, there were several examples of this. We've got it again here. Bruno Fernandez, again, in this pocket between the defence and the midfield. But what it gives us is not a central runner, but a wide runner. Again, Bruno drops deep, draws the attention, and Alejandro Garnacho is able to go beyond that. Bruno Fernandez finds him with a pass, but Garnacho is the runner. So the run is coming from out wide rather than through the middle. More clips of it. Again, in this sort of situation here, we've got McTominay and Bruno Fernandez both in the space. And what we can see is that the runners are out wide. Garnacho on the left and also Ahmad on the right is starting to make his way forward. This is very, very important for United. The question is, why is it so important? Why is it so important to have that wide runner? Well, the answer really is as simple as tactical flexibility. It gives you the option to chop and change and really switch up your tactical approach. So for example, when Hojlund plays up front, typically the way he's been used at United has been an in-behind runner, but centrally. Not so much in the channels, I would like to see more of that, but this season he has tended to run in-behind through the middle. Now when Rasmus Hojlund is running in-behind through the middle, it means these centre-backs are going to come with him, but it also means the whole defence drops deep. Now what this means is that it's suddenly a bit more difficult for Rashford to be a runner, and also Garnacho, because Hojlund has already taken the defence deeper. So the job of Rashford here is now to carry the ball and dribble at the fullback rather than running in behind him. You think last season Rashford was running in behind a lot. This season it's been more of a job of getting the ball into feet, looking to dribble at the fullback, carry the ball forward, and the same for Garnacho on the right hand side as well. And that's because Rasmus in the middle is a central runner. So if we quickly draw some arrows of this, Rasmus is going into these areas in behind the defence. However, what this means is that the space for Garnacho and Rashford is here. Rather than in behind the opposition, it's essentially in front of the opposition. And this doesn't necessarily always suit the profile of wingers which we've currently got. But when you switch to more of a false nine, that completely changes. So when we put this false nine into the side, the running potential of the United side is very, very different. The runs and the attacking intent is coming in different areas. So now our striker is going to drop deep. What is the effect of this? The defenders, which we were talking about earlier, being pinned backwards and dragged backwards, are now going to squeeze forward, up towards this forward like so. Because of the false nine dropping in, right? This is the main threat. He's dropping, so the centre-backs need to follow him by pushing up into these areas. What this is now going to do, though, is create running potential for Garnacho and Rashford in wider areas. So before, the space for Rashford and Garnacho was essentially in front of the opposition, whereas now, with this deeper central presence in the false nine striker, the space comes out wide in behind for these two to run into. And we know that that suits Marcus Rashford, and we know that that suits Garnacho. Whereas our false nine is now drawing attention here, creating this space for these guys to get into. Now, there isn't a right or wrong approach here. I'm not saying that you should always play with a false nine because it allows you wide runners. I'm also not saying that you should always have a runner in the middle because it gets the wingers to drop deep. It's not a case of one or the other is the better option. It's more the case of, imagine if you have the luxury to do both. That's the important thing here. So let's say, in one game, you are going to play with Rasmus Hojlund. So Hojlund's going to come back into the side up front. I've lost him. Where is he? Here he is. Rasmus Hojlund is going to come into the side up front, and all game long he's going to keep sprinting in behind the opposition defence, which we know he's very good at doing. Very powerful runner, good on the ball, uses his upper body well to hold off the opposition if he does get into these areas. Hojlund is really effective here. This drags the opposition back, And like I said, it gives us the job of having wingers which are going to carry the ball. This suits someone like Amad when he plays. Should someone like Elise come into the club, it could suit him. And it allows you to exploit the space in front of the opposition, in front here. Let's now say that you face a different opposition, someone who has very different defensive strengths. Perhaps the opposition are really good centrally, really good at being compact in the middle, but they struggle with wide runners. Well, when you face that opposition, you bring your false 9 into the side, and they ask different questions of the opposition. Again, it's going to create that running space for the likes of Rashford and Garnacho. So that's the important thing here. It's not about the false 9 being better than a true 9, or wide wingers being better than inverted wingers, or running wingers being better than wingers which come to feet. It's not a case of one being better than the other. It's the case of having tactical flexibility. So if you're Erik ten Hag going into a game, you can have a bit of versatility in it, a bit of surprise. If I'm the opposition trying to set up against Ten Hag, I don't quite know what attack he's going to go for. Is he going to go for this attack where there's lots of running threat from out wide, or is he going to try and attack us through the middle of the pitch with the running striker? That's the key thing here. So United, in my opinion, need to try and find that sort of striker. This false 9 who can be back up to Hojlund at times, but also actually be good enough to start games and compete for that starting spot should we need it in certain games.
So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, JerseyFifa.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFifa for 10% off when you order.
Before we move on to actually suggesting some different players for United to look at, I do quickly want to look at one more positive of having the false 9 option from the bench, and that is to play in the final third. When we play with Hojlund up top, and again I have no issue with this by the way, but when we play with Hojlund up top, he's not someone who's going to drop into these areas and link. Instead he wants to get into the penalty area, be a bit of a poacher. We've seen it in his goal catalogue this season, right? Some really good goals from inside the box or just outside the box. But he doesn't want to drop deep and kind of be cute and use dummies and quick footwork and things like that. Not really his game. So when Hojlund plays up front, you have to create chances for him. He's not really going to create chances for other people. Whereas, if you play with a false 9, they can create chances for other people with, yes, passes into the final third, of course, but also purely with their movement and their ability to distract centre-backs. For example, as the ball is in this sort of area, and perhaps the winger is coming inside, again, imagine Amad in this role. As the false 9 drops into this area, it creates confusion for centre-backs. They don't know should they follow him, but then potentially leave room for a runner in behind, or should they drop off, so there isn't that space, but then you're allowing someone to get on the ball here. So again, if this player's got ball striking, that would be very useful as well. And again, we saw the benefit of this in that Newcastle game with Bruno Fernandez, and I think this has gone a little bit under the radar for this goal from Kobbie Mainoo. As Amad comes inside, watch the movement of Bruno Fernandez. He isn't interested in really stretching the opposition. You know, if we take Bruno here, he's not interested in getting into these areas. It doesn't really enter his mind. He doesn't even consider it at any point. And the effect of that is the Newcastle centre-backs almost have no one to mark, which, as odd as it might sound, becomes really difficult in football. When you don't have a clear man who you're meant to follow and mark, you get a little bit stuck in between two players, and we saw the effect of that for this goal. Because as Amad comes inside and plays the ball, Bruno moves towards the ball, and the Newcastle centre-back follows him, but he doesn't follow him all the way. He follows him kind of half and half. He ends up in this awkward position between two players, and yes, the Newcastle shape was poor on this occasion, but you can see the effect of it. Bruno has dragged this Newcastle defender, if we quickly mark him, he's dragged this Newcastle defender all the way out here. And it's opened up all the room in the world for Kobbie Mainoo. Now again, if we were to imagine this was Hojlund, who again I've got no issue with, but imagine this was Hojlund, this centre-back would probably be back here somewhere. So again, that is the difference. It opens up runners for other people. Of course, Kobbie Mainoo scores on this occasion. So in my opinion, it is essential that United bring in a new striker this summer who offers something different to Hojlund. Again, this is not a criticism of Hojlund. I think he's great, and I think he's going to be really, really good one day. It's a case of being able to change a game, either from the bench by bringing a different profile of striker in, or going into a game, tactical flexibility, completely changing the structure of the attack, which I think you have freedom to do in the final third. That's what United need to aim for. The question is then, who ticks those boxes? Who can you actually bring into the club? Well, I want to look at 3 options real quick. This is just suggestions. We're not actually going to break them down as players. It's just 3 quick suggestions. Perhaps we'll break them down in further detail in the future. If you want that in videos, let me know. We'll start off, though, with a very expensive option. I will be honest. A very, very expensive option. His name is Cunha, and he plays for Wolves. He would probably cost around £65 million, but you can see in his FBref radar here, this is a really well-rounded player, someone who offers a little bit of everything we've just been speaking about. Now, importantly with Cunha, he also has versatility. He can play wide at times, he can play in a 10 as well. But ideally, if you played him as a false 9, he could take United's attack to the next level at times, because this is a complete player. Someone who has really kicked on in the past 2 seasons and really developed. He can drop deep, get on the ball, do the exact job which Bruno Fernandez done the other day, and again, we obviously get that benefit. The problem is, he's probably going to cost over 60, 65, 70 million pound, which is incredibly expensive. Incredibly expensive, but he would be a good option. If you want a slightly cheaper option who's going to bring something similar, whilst not the same, Joshua Zirkzee, who again we've spoken about him quite a lot on the channel, you're probably looking at more 35 to 45 million pound here, I would imagine, a little bit more affordable. We know what he's going to bring. Again, his FBref radar kind of captures it quite nicely. We can see how well-rounded he is, how good he is with his passing, pass completion, progressive passes. He's a really good player on the ball, and again, he would tick those boxes which we're looking for, dropping into these areas and giving something different to the side. And then we've got an even cheaper option, and perhaps a bit of a rogue shout if you like. Memphis. Remember this guy who came to United as a bit of a raw player? These days, much more mature. He's a much more established footballer, and it feels like he's kind of found himself as a player. In this deep-lying forward / kind of false 9 role up front, of course he still has the potential to go in behind a defence because he's a quick, powerful guy, but the technical ability also to come towards the ball, get involved in these areas, and again, open up space for other people. Now, for today, we're not going in depth on these 3 players. It's just an idea of 3 different names we could look at. The profile is the most important thing, in my opinion. United need a striker who can come into the side and offer something different. I don't want a like-for-like for Rasmus Hojlund, because let's say we're having a game where Hojlund's playing up front and for tactical reasons he's not really affecting the game, right? His profile just doesn't suit the opposition we're playing. If all we then have from the bench is the same thing, it makes it difficult to change a game. Whereas if you bring something completely different on, now this more of a false 9 player or a deep lying forward, somebody wants to drop deep and manipulate the space in a different way, it gives you a way to change a game, right? If you're Erik ten Hag as manager, you look to your bench, you can bring something different on. I think that would be really valuable for us. We haven't had that luxury this season. Hopefully next season we can get it if we sign a striker this summer. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you agree with the profile that I'm talking about, or do you think we need something completely different, or do we need something actually similar to Rasmus Hojlund? And also, what players? Do you like the 3 suggestions I've made here, and do you want further videos on any of them? But also let me know some other players as well, particularly maybe some under 20 players. If you know one, let me know in the comments. But apart from that, we're finished for today. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.